considered in the context of contributions made by the Western armies and navies in the other theatres of war, and of course by the Soviet Union. That said, it is also a mistake to suggest, as many critics have, that Allied bombing had no effect on the outcome of the war. It did. The question is rather what effect, which type of bombing, and whether the results constituted the wisest use of scarce military resources. On this point, the distinction between the American and British campaigns is relevant. Bearing in mind that determining cause and effect is always very difficult, the evidence, as this book shows, suggests that the bombing that damaged Germany the most, the destruction of industrial targets and the inestimably important obliteration of the German fighter force, was done by the Americans. At 3 points in the bombing campaign, in 1943, twice, and in late 1944 to early 1945, American precision bombing almost brought the Germans to their knees. Compared with the British, the Americans bombed better, with greater results and lower loss of life, both civilian and military. Bombing debates were about more than strategy. They were also about morality. This was the case both during the war and after. To the end, the American campaign was affected by a particular concern for the moral implications of bombing. Many writers today deny this, and Spatz and Doolittle were keen after the war to disassociate themselves from the taint of morality. It is clear why. Expressing concerns over women and children was at best unstrategic. At worst, it was unmanly. It is nonetheless impossible to read the exchange above or other passionate denunciations of area bombing discussed in this book without seeing a deep and abiding moral concern. For their part, the RAF led a campaign that was, from 1942, committed, daring, and produced at times spectacular results. In the end, however, the British obsession with the obliteration of German cities, the Commander-in-Chief of Bomber Command, Sir Arthur Harris, promised to take them out one after another like pulling teeth, was ultimately counterproductive. It had few direct effects on German production, which rose unchecked until late in 1944. Area bombing's indirect effects, forcing the Germans to transfer resources from other theatres of war to the home front, about which much has been made, could have been achieved at lower cost through precision bombing. In writing this book, I have relied on a wide range of sources, archives, personal interviews, and memoirs of the key characters involved. None of these is entirely without problems, but they are essential to reconstructing the air war through the eyes of those who arranged it, those who executed it, and those who experienced it. 2 types of sources are worth commenting on. The first are interviews with German civilians. Some might be rightly suspicious of accounts given by Germans who lived through the Third Reich, viewing them as an effort in self-justification. Here time was fortunately on my side. Most of those Germans who remembered the Third Reich were children at the time. These children of war, Kriegskinder, were old enough to remember the bombings, but too young to have been involved in the politics that led up to the war. Equally important, whatever one thinks of them, these children were there, and their stories are, subject to all the usual qualifications that apply to oral history, part of the historical record. In many cases, they expressed great appreciation that anyone, above all a foreigner, would be interested in their stories. A daughter of one eyewitness from Essen wrote me a touching letter. We read about your project in our daily newspaper this week. My mother, born 1937, decided to go out on a limb and to give your assistant her phone number. Your assistant called her back and had a long talk with her. This was the best thing that could have happened to my mother. I grew up with her stories about her experiences during her early childhood, when the war started and everything that seemed to be so reliable fell to pieces. She always told us about the bombings, but she never had the chance to tell her experiences to strangers. So what became normal to us through endless repetition acquired a disturbing and destructive quality for her. Until this phone call. When the call was over, my mother wept heavily. But after that, she told me she felt relieved. I think it helped her to know someone outside her family recognized that her experiences were traumatic for her and the whole generation. I thank you very much that my mother had the chance to be heard before dying. The second source is the memoirs of Albert Speer. Speer was the last man standing. All other senior Nazis killed themselves, were hanged at Nuremberg, or went into hiding. As such, he was able to tell his story without having to worry that those who had been in the room with him would challenge his version of events. His memoirs were, as all memoirs are, an effort in self-justification. They should be treated with caution, but they remain...